back with you on the AM 1150 Garden Show, and we've got the phones starting to ring here, 250-862-2525 to get through to us. And right now we have Hendrik joining us. Good morning, Hendrik.
Oh, good morning. I had an fuchsia that I transplanted into a single pot from the outside. I had it in the garage for a few days, and it's been in the house about 3 weeks now. Mm-hmm. But it dropped all its buds and flowers, and it keeps dropping its leaves. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's just that change of environment that's doing that. We used to actually let our fuchsias go dormant, didn't we, Ken?
Yeah, we would keep them from year to year, but we would, they can handle going right down to the freezing point, but it really triggers them to go dormant and shed their leaves and be deciduous and all that. So that's what they're doing.
So do they like to be kind of wet, or should they kind of dry out before you water them again? Like I've been watering it only about once a week.
Yeah, I would be keeping them a bit on the dry side and then storing them in a cool location where it's, ideally around maybe less than 10 degrees Celsius.
Oh, so it's like I have them in a living area where it's nice and warm, and so it wouldn't really start blooming again inside.
You could try, but it will probably shed, and then you'll have to wait for it to go through a process where it starts to leaf out again. But don't overwater it, or it will develop root rot. And keep it in the brightest location you have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, letting it go on the dry side and then giving it a good soaking when you do.
Yeah,
wow.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Yep, thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
You coined a phrase years ago, Ken, with me. Says, you have to develop a rhythm in your watering techniques. Yep. Rhythm. Now, I'm doing that with the greenhouse. Now, I've got mostly succulent plants or plants in large pots. So I don't have to water a lot at this time of year in the greenhouse, but I have to keep a sharp eye on things because sometimes you get a little complacent and you don't catch something before it might be a little on the too late side. There's certain things like, I have a few plants in there, geraniums and things they're so forgiving. All my succulents are forgiving. You can let them get bone dry and then give them a good soaking, and you can do that.
Yeah.
Just I wait till they get really dry. But there are certain things such as the hibiscus, the tropical hibiscus that I have in there. I have to keep an eye on that. An asparagus fern, I have to keep an eye on that.
You know what I let get too dry this year was my Euphorbia leucanura.
Oh, really?
Which to the point where the growing tip died.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
it's just it's one of those things. Like you say, you sort of become complacent because you think it's just like a cactus, and so you just sort of forget about it, and you think it's fine, it's fine, but it can go so far. Everything hits that point. But what I find with the succulents is the leaves start to get really crinkled up, and they start to. You can tell they're dehydrating. Yeah. And then you have to be super careful during the winter months is just to water a very tiny amount and then maybe wait for a few hours and come back and just water a tiny amount again. And so you're just lightly soaking it, in particular just right near the stem, because in nature you would only get that little bit of water, and sometimes the water trickles down. It's like dew that comes off the plant itself, and it trickles down to the bottom of the stem. And then that's where the roots will grab it right away and put it into storage. Whereas they're not worried about the whole root mass becoming wet, which, as you know, some of those succulents don't like that.
Yeah. It's fascinating how the various plants do maintain their moisture. Some of them have air roots, and those air roots are actually taking moisture in from the air, too, as well as oxygen and other things. But then other things don't have air roots. Other plants, such as my flamingo flower, flamingo flower. I'm trying to think of the proper name for it, but it can stand to be wet constantly. Always wet.
Yeah, and that's where, again, learning about the plant, where it comes from. It's like peace lilies. A peace lily lives in kind of a boggy, swampy area,
right?
In nature, pretty much. So you're going to just keep that in mind. So it probably doesn't mind to be a little wetter than say your average house plant.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating, and as you say, you get a rhythm with your plants. You know your plants. We've got, Ken, and this is not. I wouldn't lie to you. I seriously would not lie to you. Okay. We bought, when we were first married, a little pothos plant.
Mm-hmm.
And we stuck it in a little. It's a piano. It's a not plaster of Paris, but a ceramic piano, old fashioned piano that's skinny. So the piano. The container is the shape of a piano, and it's about an inch and a quarter deep, or deep. It's about 3 inches deep, inch and a quarter wide, and about 4 inches wide, or you know what I'm saying?
Long.
Yeah, long.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought this pothos, and we bought this thing. We used to have grab bags back in the day. Mom used to put together, for our Christmas open house, she'd put together a big basket full of grab bags for 20 cents or 50 cents or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we grabbed one of these bags just for fun. And I had to put some holes in the bottom of it, drill some holes because it didn't have any holes. Mm-hmm. We put this pothos in there. This tiny pothos, I crammed it in because it had. We still have that pothos in that pot.
Same pot,
same soil.
Now it goes all the way around your living room.
No, we just keep cutting it back, and it's just a little planter, and we just keep cutting it back, and it's got this big, huge trunk on it because it's been cut back so often.
Yeah,
but
see, that plant does have those air roots that it'll take moisture right out of the atmosphere. It's an epiphyte.
Yeah, it's just
it's fascinating how plants survive.
Yeah.
And that brings to mind, how plants survive for years and years and years with the right amount of attention, I guess, is back in 1988, you and I did a thing on CHBC with building a bonsai out of a Ficus benjamina,
right.
The regular
the wriggly one.
Just the regular one.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did it. And we put it into one of Barry's pots, Barry Salaberry's pots. He was making some little fancy bonsai pots. We put it into that, put it all together, and I still have that same bonsai in the same pot. I've never repotted it or anything. It's just a ball of roots right now.
Did we not do a video on that or something?
Yeah, well, it was on CHBC. So you said you told me you have it maybe somewhere.
Have that.
It was way back.
Tons of VHF tapes.
Yeah, I think I was just a little kid. I might have. I don't know.
VHS tapes from back there, and lots of those CHBC VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I don't recognize myself when
yeah.
Black
you
hair,
think it's
black
me.
beard. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, 250-862-2525 to get through to us today. We are having some fun talking plants, and Ken and I are here to help you with your gardening issues. But I'll tell you, we had a pretty good frost last night, so it's an indication that we are now into the time where you can't be growing tomatoes outside and can't be doing all that.
Yeah.
However,
sure.
Planting your garlic and things like that is something you can do, and I've done that. But I'm just looking for something I was going to talk about, and I just can't seem to find what I was going to say. But
something seasonally appropriate, I'm sure. How about Remembrance Day?
Let's talk about that. The fact that we have Remembrance Day coming up, and wear your poppy to show your respect for our veterans and our folks that passed away in the war and fought so hard for our freedom and whatnot.
Yeah, and donate.
Yeah, give to the Legion because they do wonderful work. 250-862-2525 to get through to Ken and I today. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. We're back with you again on the AM 1150 Garden Show, and having a lot of fun today, and especially now that we have been joined by Vicki on line one. Good morning, Vicki.
Good morning. I love your show.
Thank you.
And I have a question. I have a honeysuckle in the backyard that did nothing for about 4 years, and all of a sudden this year it just blossomed and grew like wildfire. Now, it still has what I would call buds. They haven't broken open into the flower yet. And I just was out there and feeling them, and there's still like a tube kind of not open. but they don't feel frozen. And I'm wondering, do I just leave that plant the way it is, or do I cut it back to, however, a foot off the ground or something?
I would just leave it as it is.
Okay.
The plant will know how to get into winter. If you have to snip off a little bit here or there just to, if it's hanging out or not looking right, you can either tie it up a bit or you can snip it back a little. But ultimately, the plant knows how to get itself through winter. A few years back, we had several honeysuckles that bloomed right through past Christmas. So,
really?
So it is possible. They're pretty durable. They're very drought or frost tolerant, so they just keep on going and going. And so you never know. Sometimes those are actually flower buds that are yet to open up.
Still to open, right? Yeah, I didn't know whether I should cut it down. Like, I didn't know how to handle it, because it never ever got more than 6 or 8 inches out of the ground. Yeah. But now it's like, it's tall and it's hanging over we've got a retaining wall there. It's hanging over the retaining wall. So, and the hummingbirds love it.
Yeah, and if there's any left, because there are a few hummingbirds still left, they would probably appreciate a snack as they go by if they kept on blooming. But you can just tie them up, and then in the spring, if you want to snip off a little bit more, that's fine, because that'll encourage more growth, encourage them to branch a little bit more so it gets thicker. And, of course, they bloom on new growth anyway, so that'll be good.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll wait till spring and give it a little haircut.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks for calling.
I love your show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Vicky. Appreciate the call.
Bye.
Appreciate that. Bye-bye.
And we have Andy joining us. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Excellent.
Good, thanks.
Good. Hey, I got a question for you. You might be able to help me with. Maybe you've never had this one before. I'm looking at doing a 16 by 24-foot little ice skating rink in my backyard for the grandkids for the winter. And I'm just wondering, is this going to have any serious repercussions on the grass back there throughout the winter or the springtime, or any helpful hints?
I'm going to let this guy from Cranbrook answer that question.
Yeah. We had so many backyard rinks. The grass is pretty durable. It's one of these things where if you have sort of a freeze and then a thaw and a freeze and a thaw and a freeze and a thaw, which is what we often get here in the Okanagan. You never quite know. Out in the Cranbrook area, in these Kootenays, at least we used to get a freeze and it would stay frozen all winter. And the ice would actually protect the lawn underneath, because it was so, just perfect, and it stayed pretty cold all winter. I think that either way, the lawn will still survive. I always think of the Vancouver area where it rains for most of the winter, and a lot of the grass lives in these areas, especially when you see it in the fields. And there's these low spots that fill right up with water. And what that does is it definitely removes all the nitrogen from the earth there in those locations. That's something that's called denitrification, which occurs whenever there's puddles of water sitting. But again, that's a temporary thing. And once the things dry out in the spring, the plants tend to come right back. And, even if it was slightly, thinner or something, you could just apply a bit of fresh seed in there and away you go.
Yeah. And I think, I'll butt in here, I think one of the things that people often say, can I lay plastic down first? And I think that's a no-no, right, Ken?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably a lot of recipes, and being in Canada, I think we could look up what's the best way to build a backyard rink, and it would give you those clues. But the one thing I don't think I'd worry too much about the grass itself, but like you're saying, Don, when you put that plastic on there, it creates this environment where you get molds and you can get fungus growing that could actually potentially damage the lawn.
The plastic helps in certain ways because it holds the moisture, it holds the water. And then if you do get a melt, oftentimes the water sits there and then freezes up again when you want it
You're better to let the earth breathe.
You bet. I think
whenever
so.
it has the opportunity.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different ways of doing this. Like if you go on YouTube or if you just Google it, there's a lot of different recipes. And I was thinking of putting the 6 mil poly down, but that was my concern is, here where you do have the thaw and the freeze, that potentially could hurt that, because it's going to be 200 square feet of lawn. It's quite a chunk, and probably would be better just to, I guess, throw water on that, pack the snow, throw water down, and keep doing that until you get it to a nice level, eh?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would, again, I like the idea of following something that someone else has done, and so there are people who use plastic and people who don't, so I would just investigate both those and then use your best decision, and likely, if you can, go with one without the plastic.
Yeah. I go by, a couple of years ago, we had a band reunion, and I set up a stage in my backyard. Now, this is summertime, so it's a different story.
Yeah.
But I put down a stage with some poly first, and then put the stage on top of the poly. And, that chunk of lawn died, and it took a while to get it back. Mm-hmm. Now, that's summer. That's not winter. So I maybe I'm thinking too hard on it. But like Ken said, I think, Andy, if you do a little more investigation on air, I mean, I've only built one ice rink in my whole entire life, and that was when in the flower shop parking lot there for the kids. I did 1 year. I built an ice rink. Prior to that, the problem in the Okanagan is it's really hard to find that window of opportunity. You've got to have a nice stretch of cold weather.
It's usually in December, mid to late December, you get a good snap, and if you're lucky, it goes to the end of January or into February, and so it's always worth it. I mean, wow. How nice is that, eh? Have your own rink.
Just experiment with it and learn from the mistakes, and let it go from there. It's just that nowadays with this COVID thing, seems like everything's shut down, so these little guys have nowhere to go outside in the wintertime. So I'm going to give that a try.
You're a good grandpa.
All right, thank you. You are too, Don.
Okay. All
right, take care.
Take care, Andy.
Take care.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, we're going to we got coming up here. We got the break at the 10 o'clock or the 9 o'clock break, I should say, and we got a whole rip-roaring hour of garden show after that 10 o'clock break. 9 o'clock break. I keep saying 10 o'clock, but Ken, it's only 9 o'clock. It's not 10 o'clock. And of course, we're technically it's 10 o'clock because
it's not.
We went back an hour, but
in our heads,
I'm still feeling 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
the dogs still haven't got back on track.
No,
they still think dinner time is 4 o'clock instead of 5.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, I still get up too early.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
Well, dogs don't have a concept of time.
No, they don't. So they don't know that there's a time change, But,
they just have a concept of food.
Yeah, that's right. Food and pets and walks and balls. Those are the things that are dogs that we're in our family.
It's a priority.
The ball is big. The food is big. The walk is big. And the pets and the tummy rubs are big. They're all big.
There you go.
Those are all.
I like tummy rubs too.
Grinder likes tummy rubs as well. So I'm not in on that, Grinder. You'll have to find somebody. Might have to hire somebody.
Look, all I'm saying is dogs have a great life, and if I can aspire to be at least like a quarter of a dog, why not?
That'd be pretty good. That's right. There you go.
Well, if you want to talk more to Grinder, he's the guy that answers the phone when you phone into the garden show, and that number is 250-862-2525, and we've been having some fun today. We've got just a couple of minutes left of this portion of the show. I must say, I just took my auto mower, Husqvarna auto mower, back to Savoy for the...
Did you ever ride that thing down the street?
No, I haven't. No. A kitty cat could ride it, I think. But anyway, so I took it back for its winter, cleanup and servicing, and it sleeps there all winter. It hibernates in Savoy equipment, and that's the beauty.
I see.
That's the beauty of the service that they have there, is that they have that service where they'll come and pick your auto mower up, and they'll take it back to the shop, clean it all up. They put it on a charge all winter so that the battery stays safe, and keeps it nice and warm all through the winter. And then you get it back in the spring, and away you go. We're just right on the money.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break here. Just after we come back, the number to get through to us is 250-862-2525. We're going to take that break for the news and be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. Well, here we are, back with the second half of the 2-hour garden show that happens every Saturday morning. It's an absolutely gorgeous day out there, Ken. The sun's shining and the frost is
cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It was frosty this morning, quite crispy when I got up at 6 this morning and went out to the greenhouse, checked that out. It's nice and warm in the greenhouse. Gets as low at night as 17.
In the greenhouse.
In the greenhouse. And I've got not 17. I've got the temperature set for 22. And with a 2-degree differential. So if it gets down to 20, it fires up and goes up to 24. And then comes back down to 20 again, back up to 24. There's a 2-degree differential there. Really a good little machine, that Wadsworth controller. If anybody out there has greenhouses, have a greenhouse, and you want the coolest, neatest, tidiest little controller, computerized controller that will literally control your heat and 3 stages of cooling for $650, $700. I mean, I know it's a little bit pricey, but heavens, it's really worth it. Because
in comparison, just think about the past when we used to have equipment for the old greenhouses and whatnot, and we'd get the exact same thing, but it covered an entire wall, and it was these huge panels and computers and stuff.
Relays.
Now it's just this little box you put on the wall. So in comparison, I bet that old system was probably $12,000 or more. And now it's down to $600.
No, it's a good little controller. I'm really enjoying it. And my cucumbers, I've got my tomatoes. We were talking about tomatoes, first of all, about the fact that our garden tomatoes are still in the kitchen and ripening up nicely. And my little grape tomatoes, I got a basket full of them still ripening up. And I've got some of my beautiful Sal Caruso tomatoes. And it's the only one I'm going to grow next year. I'm not growing any other tomato other than Sal's, I forget what they call it, but it's a huge, looks like a paste tomato, like it's got that point on it.
Like an oxheart almost,
meaty and delicious, flavorful.
I'm sure it's the same one we grew this year.
Prolific.
Yep.
And
it comes true to seed.
You can just collect the seed and plant the seed next year. And so that's all I'm going to grow. I grew a Fantastic and an Early Girl and other.
If you find something good, and especially if you know the source, because that's the key, is that, just sometimes I buy the seed and I get the wrong seed in the package. It doesn't always happen. That's where good seed companies, sometimes you really have to rely on them, so you got to make sure you get a good, trustworthy company.
But if you take the seed, and it is true to seed, you can explain that to the folks that sometimes you collect the seed, and it is true to farm. And I'm still not quite into the biology of that, but
the genetics,
the genetic thing. But you get a seed. What's a first filial generation? What does that mean? First, the F1 hybrid.
The F1 hybrid.
Yeah. So the seed that you get from this particular tomato comes true to form. It doesn't, even though it was cross-pollinated and everything, it's still that tomato. But a lot of things, the hybrids that you buy, if you plant the seed, you don't know what you're going to get, really, do you?
No, you could get, who knows, it could be anything. But these are, the term, I think, open pollinated is what we commonly hear. It just means that, it can be pollinated by anything and it'll still produce the same fruit.
Right.
Whereas the hybrids are not so much like that. They're specific varieties that have been bred together to get a specific result. And those F1 hybrids, every single seed is guaranteed to be that exact variety, but its offspring will be a blend of whatever. Who knows what it'll be. And it won't be the original, guaranteed, because that was a specific combination of genetics. And so, and you'll find that with F1 hybrids, sometimes when you pick up a package of seeds, you'll see up in the right-hand corner or sometimes left-hand corner, it'll say F1 right on it. You'll know that's a specific one. It's taken a lot of work and effort to develop the seeds, and you'll notice the price tag is either it's the same price but you only get 2 seeds, or it's one of those things. And I recall, just being in the greenhouse industry, there was many types of seeds that we had to purchase that were F1s, and we had to pay big time, and it was often 20, 30, 40 times higher than regular seed.
The interesting thing is, from Stokes, of course, I deal mostly with Stokes, Stokes seeds. The greenhouse tomatoes, we can't get Vendor and all those other old ones anymore, but they've got newer tomatoes. And the cluster, they all develop together. So you've got a cluster, it's not just, the truss, as Dad used to call them, a truss, right? And all the tomatoes on the truss are developing at one time, so you can pick the whole truss.
Right.
And you see that in the stores now, the whole truss with all the same. And that's interesting.
Is that determinate?
Well,
no, indeterminate?
No, it's an indeterminate
Could be
plant.
indeterminate.
It's an indeterminate plant, but it's just that the cluster comes on all at one time. It doesn't just, like quite often on your tomato plants in the garden, you'll have your truss, and you'll have a couple of ripe ones, the ripe ones there, and the rest are developing, right? These all come on at once. Now, I've done 2 types, and now that my greenhouse is really producing, I've got Cobra. That's the variety of tomato I got in there right now, Cobra. Doesn't do that well outside. We've tried a couple plants outdoors, the Cobra, and they don't produce that well. I don't know what it is, but they don't do well outside. The Comeet is one step up. The Cobra, you pay $17, or maybe it's $22, something like that, for 25 seeds. Comeet, you pay $45 for 25 seeds. Now, I want to try Comeet in the spring, but I brought in Cobra seed because our good friend, my good friend that I can't remember her name, Marlene Good. Marlene Good. Marlene gave me a couple of Cobra plants, and she brought in, actually in April this spring, she brought to me a couple of tomatoes, Cobra tomatoes that she'd grown in her greenhouse. And Ken, they were delicious. They were just really, really good. And so that's why I ordered some Cobra in from. Yeah,
that's really the key. That's what I've always found, that the breeders, people who breed different types of tomatoes, they're often, they go for size, or they go for color, or they go for
disease
shape or disease resistance or whatever. But, what about flavor, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's the one thing. I kind of like a mixture of everything, but I really like the flavor overall.
Flavor.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to the phone lines. We got Sandy joining us. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So I have a cherry tomato that I had in a large pot, brought it in the house or in the greenhouse. Of course, all the leaves are going brown and stuff, so I'm taking those off, but there's a new sprout at each place.
It's bouncing back.
Yes. So I was thinking that I would just let the tomatoes ripen and pick them, but now I'm thinking I'm going to try to bring the plant through.
Sure.
Yeah, well, why not? It's fun to try, that's for sure. It's easier with peppers than it is with tomatoes.
Yeah, my hot peppers, I brought those pots back in again this year, and we're just going to take them through another year.
Well,
Keep on nice. Trucking.
That's great.
Got a couple of crops off of them this year because I got the early crop, and then they had another one.
That's great.
Very cool.
Ken, you often talk about the difference with when a plant is outside and all the sunshine and everything like that, and the environment, and then the change when you bring it in. Those leaves actually need to sort of abort and then have new ones come on.
New ones grow in,
to
adapt to the environment.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's what's going on there, Sandy.
That's like new experiment for this winter.
Well, you betcha.
Sounds great.
You are having a ball, and I really appreciate that.
I've also got snippings of my basil plant, the flower head snippings.
Yes.
In a vase.
Oh.
Now, if I leave those, will those flowers produce viable seed?
I think the best is vegetative cuttings. They root so easy. I don't know. It might be viable, but it might be a mixture of something. Who knows?
Yeah. If it's just a standard variety of basil, I'm sure that they would be just another standard variety. If they're one of the fancier varieties, or maybe a hybrid, as we were just
I've got
talking
a ruffled basil.
Yeah, ruffled ones. That's a good question.
And that's not the one that's got the flowers on, because my ruffled basil, it was a brought through one, and I planted it in the garden, and now I've got it back into a pot in the greenhouse. Huh. But it never ever flowered. My other basil plant, I had to trim many times through the summer. And this ruffled one, it hasn't even come to a flower.
Isn't that something?
But it roots marvelously from cuttings.
Yeah, they root very easily.
Wow. I love basil. It just smells so good.
I always think of faulty towers when I think of basil. Basil!
That's basil.
Yeah. Well, Sandy, we always appreciate your call.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. And we're going to go to Pam. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a quirky question. Have either of you ever tried to bring your jalapeno pepper plants inside after the warm season's done? And if you have, what have you done with them, and have they lasted very long?
Well, Sandy just got off the air with us, and she's done that a couple of times, and she's doing it again this year, bringing her peppers in. They are perennial. Down in the south, they grow them. They just keep growing, don't they, Kim?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many years they can survive. There's a certain amount of vigor required, but at least a year, I would say, for sure. Like, so, one winter, I would say would be doable. Mine, I had the big California Wonders, and what I did was I grew them in like big 5-gallon pails, and they grew and they did their thing outside, and they were still all covered with little peppers, so I just moved them straight inside. The key was moving them in before it got too cold, without giving them too much of a chill. And then they would just keep on growing, and they produced pretty well. I must say that the peppers that produced indoors didn't have as much flavor as the ones that were produced outdoors. And that just brought to mind that, I should really integrate a grow light of some sort. That would certainly help.
The problem I had, Pam, and you may keep an eye out for this, because, we're excited to hear you try this, but the problem I had was the aphids. The aphids just consumed the peppers when they came in. They just got so excited. Oh, I just got a reprieve from the cold, and they just started breeding, and boom, we had so many aphids on our peppers. It was something else.
That is a good point. That's a good point. I've been really relishing in the opportunity to pick kale recently without as many aphids.
Yeah, because the temperatures
it's been pretty great, because especially if you grow the frilly kale. Oh, frilly kale is an aphid's best playground, because it's pretty hard to get them off of there. But anyways, my son grew multiple jalapeno pepper plants this summer, and whatever he was doing and the season, the way it rolled, it just seemed to be a really vibrant year for those plants. And so the end of September, they had so many peppers still on them, still to come, and we thought, well, let's just bring them in and see what happens. So far, so good. He's thinking about hanging some Christmas lights on them just to add some seasonal flair next month. And I just thought, I don't know how long they'll last, but I guess we'll see. So I just thought I'd ask. So we'll see. So they might actually continue to produce peppers then if they get enough light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure they will. Yep.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah. And then the possibility of putting them back out next year if they survive the winter season is there?
Yeah, you'd have to go all the way to almost the end of May, so it's a long road. And just, you never know. Like, it has happened.
And you can do the old put them out in the daytime, bring them in at night through late April into May, but you don't want to leave them out overnight because it's too cold at night.
No, I hear. Well, they would have been compost already, so they've got a little more time anyway.
They're like cats, 9 lives right there.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Appreciate
Take
the call.
Care. Bye-bye.
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 And on that note, we invite your calls, 250-862-2525 to get through to us today. We're going to take a short break. Be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show.